Hi everyone, for today's book review we're back up into the skies and we're going to be checking out Heinkel He-115. This book, written by an alliance of authors from all across Europe, 4 of them, has been published by a small publication house called Chandos Publications. And while their output may be small, the books that they produce are absolutely stunning and the quality is first class. As you can see, this is a substantial hardcover book. All the photos, images, graphics, plans, etc. have been produced on beautiful, thick, high gloss paper so that the quality of everything that has been reproduced is absolutely top-notch. The Heinkel He-115 float plane may not come to mind as the premier German float plane of the Second World War. Indeed, it wasn't that at all. When we think of German float planes, we might think of the Dorna 24 or the more exotic, the Voss 222 Viking. But this plane provided vital service in the early half of the Second World War. There were some examples that were in service with the Luftwaffe right through until the very end in May 1945. And on top of that, this aircraft also gave valuable and fascinating service to other countries. Sweden, who used this plane right through until the early 1950s, and Norway, who had an extremely active use of these planes. The Heinkel He-115 was produced to be a long-range torpedo bomber and to replace the earlier Heinkel that had been in service and by the mid-30s was woefully outdated. As it turned out, technology accelerated to a point where the capabilities and needs of the Heinkel He-115 became obsolete and its duties could be done by land planes. Despite that though, the plane still did sterling service in the first half of the war as a torpedo craft, bomber, mine layer, spy craft, search and rescue, and in terms of the Norwegian conflict, a quite active transport. In addition, it was also involved in Arctic research. Quite a lot of them were used up north for research purposes. And all of this is detailed in this book. The layout of this book is conventional, beginning with the development of the Heinkel He-115, as well as information about its chief competitor, the Voss HA-140, which was rejected. And we can also see through early views that the Heinkel He-115 was not the best looking float plane. The revised nose cones combined with the streamlined top gives it a certain charm, but the original nose section with the turret just makes it look like a giant insect. Anyway, the detail in this book is beyond impressive. We have plenty of diagrams and extreme detail about every aspect of this plane. The anatomy of this aircraft is analyzed almost bolt for bolt detail, and you can see some images up here. And we also get a clear look at the minor differences between the variants, the modifications that were done throughout the life of this aircraft, as well as the differences between those that entered service with, say, the Luftwaffe versus those that entered service with the Norwegians and the Swedish Air Forces. I found the chapters about the service of the Heinkel He-115 with Norway's Air Force to be especially fascinating. One particular aircraft was delivered to the Norwegians, and then 5 months later it was captured by the Germans in their invasion and then put into service with the Luftwaffe. At the same time, Norwegians at one point managed to capture a German Heinkel He-115 and press it into service with their Air Force briefly before they surrendered, and then that plane ended up being transferred over to the Shetland Islands. It's an absolutely fascinating book, and The sheer detail is impressive. There is a section in here detailing our scale plans, 1/72 scale. They are the most accurate thus available, as stated by the authors, and beyond just a blanket set of plans, these are divided into pre-production, production, and variants. So you can look at the same scale with incredible detail how different the Norwegian Heinkel 115 was versus, say, a late model 115. In addition to all this, there's color profiles showing how they looked in their various services and multiple color schemes throughout the war. This is a fascinating plane that had a varied career throughout the war and across multiple air forces. And despite being under the radar among other well-known float planes, this book is a fitting tribute to this aircraft. And for anyone who is fascinated by aviation in the Second World War, by float planes in particular, and especially by the lesser-known planes, then this book is an absolute goldmine for you. Also, if you're a modeler and want to try a very interesting and new subject, well, there is so much information in here, particularly with the plans and the paint schemes, that will keep you going for many dioramas and models and variants. So this book comes highly recommended. 5 captain's hats. Do check out Heinkel 115.